Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to another meal prep video. In today's video for breakfast prep, I am going to be making a chocolate chip pancake bake. I love this one. And for lunch prep, I'm going to be trying a new recipe. This is a taco pasta recipe. I found a couple versions of this, so I'm really anxious to try this one. For my dinners this week, I'm not doing my normal meal kits. I'm going to actually be throwing together some freezer meals because I'm going to be doing a week of slow cooker recipes for dinner this week. And then I just have a few things to throw together for my snacks. So if you want to see how I meal prep breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks for my husband and I, then stay with me. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Kristi and I'm planning us healthy. So like I said, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new to my channel, I want to welcome you. My name is Kristi. Currently, I'm following the WW Blue program, but on my channel, I provide points for all three programs, and I also share calories as well, but you don't need to be on any type of weight loss program to get tips and ideas from my channel. I share my meal plans, grocery hauls, what's for dinner videos, and of course my meal preps. So if those are videos that you like seeing, I hope that you'll consider subscribing by hitting the subscribe button. Also make sure to click the notification bell so you're notified anytime I upload new content. So let's get started with meal prep. All right, we're gonna get started with the breakfast prep. For breakfast this week, I'm doing chocolate chip pancake bake. This is gonna be 4 points on all programs and 203 calories. I've not made this one in a long time. This is actually one of my original pancake bakes that I made when I first started my channel. So before we get started with the breakfast prep, I do wanna mention that any of the recipes you see me sharing today will be linked down in the description box below, as well as any of the items that I'm using. So for example, my scale, my measuring spoons, anything like that that you see me using, I will link them down in the description box. Also to mention, I do a very big meal prep, and if you're new to meal prepping, please don't get overwhelmed. Just start out slow, maybe just do breakfast one week or just do one day at a time. And I'm also meal prepping for my husband and I. So usually the breakfast, I do 3 breakfasts and 3 lunches for each of us. And then later on in the week, we do something different. Okay, so for the breakfast prep, the only thing is I did not have the chocolate chip flapjack mix. I thought that I did. So I'm just gonna be using the buttermilk. So like I always say, always plug the ingredients into your own tracker because sometimes the points can be different depending on the brands that you use. So just make sure to keep that in mind. Sometimes it can make a difference of a point. So actually, let me just take this right out of here. So for this recipe, what we're gonna need is 2 cups of Kodiak cakes. And I mentioned this in pretty much every video. I don't use the measuring cup to measure. I actually put this on a scale and weigh it out. So a half a cup of this is 53 grams. I needed 2 cups of it. So I just multiplied the 53 grams times 4 to get 212. So I just weighed out 212 grams. And the reason I do that is because anything with like a flour consistency, usually if you fill it right to the 2 cup mark, you're gonna end up with too much. So I always try to weigh out anything that has like a flour consistency. But that's completely up to you, just the way that I do it. So the next thing we're gonna need is 1.5 cups of unsweetened almond milk. And I will tell you, if you have the vanilla flavor, that works really good in the pancake bakes as well. We are also going to need 1 egg, 2 overripe bananas, and if you don't like banana, you can very easily substitute that with maybe like a half a cup of unsweetened applesauce. So I have a banana here actually that I need to get in the bowl and get that mashed up. So I have 1 here, and if you'll notice in this bag, this disgusting looking thing is actually a banana that I had in my freezer. I promise you it's okay. It just looks that way because it's been frozen and then I put it in my fridge to thaw out. So that's why it looks that way. So what I usually do is when my bananas go bad and I haven't used them, I just put them in a bag and put them in my freezer. But yes, it looks really disgusting. And then the other thing that we're gonna need is a teaspoon of vanilla extract and a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and then also some chocolate chips. The chocolate chips that I'm using this week are these Bake Believe chocolate chips. So I'm gonna have to be doing a little bit different with the points. I figured out the points, and from what I could see, to keep it the same as what's in my recipe, I'm gonna need 25 grams of these. These just get sprinkled on the top anyway, but the kind that I usually use are the Baker's Choice, and I wanna say I get those at Aldi's, but they're the real mini semi-sweet chocolate chips, and for those ones, according to the recipe, it's 132 of those that you can use in it. I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees, and I have a 13 by 9 inch pan sprayed with cooking spray. So I'm just gonna finish mashing up this banana, and then we're just gonna pour everything right into the bowl. All right, once that banana is mashed up, now we're just gonna add all the ingredients to the bowl. So 2 cups of the Kodiak Cakes pancake batter, 1.5 cups of unsweetened almond milk, 1 egg, the 2 ripe bananas, then we're gonna need a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and a teaspoon of vanilla extract. The chocolate chips, like I said, we won't be adding those. We'll add those to the top. So normally if you have the chocolate chip Kodiak cakes, those have little chocolate chips in there. So now we're just gonna whisk that all together. All right, so once that is all mixed together, now we're just gonna dump it into a 13 by 9 inch pan that, like I said, I have it sprayed with cooking spray. And if you've never made a pancake bake before, these are not real fluffy like a cake is. These are a lot more dense, so don't expect it. When you first take it out of the oven, it may be raised a little bit, but then it's gonna flatten right back down. They're really dense. So now, if you want, you can just add a little bit of cinnamon to the top. I say a little bit as a big glob fell out. This part is completely optional. And then that's gonna go in the oven, 350 degrees for 25 minutes. Then I'm gonna take it out and I'm gonna add my 25 grams of chocolate chips, or if you're using the Baker's Choice minis, then you would just add 132. And then it'll go back in the oven after that for another 5. All right, the pancake bake is done. Now I'm gonna add the 25 grams of chocolate chips. So I'm just gonna put this on here and just weigh these out. And I want to put it to grams. All right. Now I'll just kind of pour those over the top. All right, that is going to go back in the oven for about 5 minutes. So I just took that out of the oven. So one thing I thought of, if you wanted to do, you could actually take a rubber spatula and just kind of blend in the chocolate chips all over the top, kind of like a frosting. But I think I'm just gonna leave it the way that it is, but you could definitely easily do that. So I'm gonna set that aside now, and then we'll cut it into the 6 portions as soon as it's cooled. Okay, I'm gonna have some blueberries with the pancake bake, so I'm just gonna put them on the side. So I'm gonna get these washed, and while I'm washing those, I might as well wash my grapes. So I have grapes to have for snack this week. I mentioned in my meal plan, a lot of you mentioned about frozen grapes. So I'm gonna try that this week for my snacks. I just use my OXO salad spinner to wash my fruits and vegetables in. I use about 1 part vinegar to 4 parts water. And a lot of people ask me why I use vinegar when I'm washing my fruits and vegetables. It's just something I learned as a child. My grandmother did it and it just stuck with me. She said that it helped to get the bacteria off. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. It's just the way that I do it. So if you use regular water though, I'm sure that's fine. All right, I'm just gonna let those sit for a few minutes in the water. So those have been sitting for a little bit, and I'm just gonna rinse them off. And then I'm just going to put them on these unpaper towels. They're basically reusable paper towels, and let those dry. So now I'm going to portion out the breakfast. Normally what I do for the blueberries is just put them in these baking cups. That way we can pull those out in order to heat up the pancake bake. But I actually ran out, so for a couple of these I just have it on some wax paper. And then the other thing that I'm doing is portioning out some syrup. So the syrup that I use is the Maple Grove Farms sugar-free syrup. This is really good. You can have 1/4 cup for 0 points. And for 2 tablespoons is 5 calories. So you can actually have a little bit over 4 tablespoons for 0 points. So normally I would weigh it out, but I know from past experience that you can pretty much fill these little containers and that comes out to the 4 tablespoons. We don't usually use all of it anyway. And these little cups I get from the Dollar Tree. You get like 10 of them for $1. So now I'm just gonna cut the pancake bake into 6. And then I'm going to actually cut each of those into 2, and that way in each container we'll have 2 pieces. All right, so breakfast is done. So again, these are 4 points on all programs, or 203 calories. And then the blueberries, of course, are 0. And then if you're counting calories, just depends on how many you have. And for the syrup, it's 0 on all programs, or 10 calories if you're counting calories. So for lunch prep this week, I'm doing a taco pasta. I called it taco pasta just because you can use any type of pasta, but it is actually, the way I'm making it is actually a taco spaghetti. I got this from a website called princesspinkygirl.com. So for this recipe, I did do a few minor modifications, so I want to share that with you. It called for 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and that's just to cook up the burger and the onion. So I'm just going to do 2 teaspoons of olive oil. And it also called for ground beef, 1 pound. I'm going to be using 1 pound of ground turkey breast, since that is 0 on blue and purple. And then the other things it calls for is 1/4 cup of onions, which I'm not going to really measure that out. I'll probably just use a whole onion. 1/4 cup of taco seasoning, or 1 packet. And I don't think I have enough taco seasoning left, so I am just going to go ahead and use a packet of this Old El Paso 25% less sodium taco seasoning mix. And then we need a 10-ounce can of Rotel tomatoes, and we don't drain these. And it doesn't need to be the Rotel brand. Any diced tomatoes with green chilies will work. We're also going to need 8 ounces of spaghetti. I'm using these Mueller's whole grain noodles. So these ones are 0 on purple. So that's what's going to keep the points down on purple. So I already have over here weighed out 8 ounces of that. And then we also need 3 cups of water, 4 ounces of shredded cheddar cheese. I'm actually going to be using these Velveeta shreds. I'm going to use 4 ounces of those, and some cilantro. So I have some cilantro here that my husband cannot stand, so we won't be putting that on his. Okay, so the points and calories for this one are 2 points on purple, 6 points on blue, and 7 points on green. And for the calories, it is going to be 282 calories. Now, one thing you could also do, if you did not want to use the pasta, you could use zoodles. You definitely could do that. I thought about adding in some zucchini, but I decided I'm just going to make it the way that it is for the first time, and then maybe the next time I make it, I'll add in some things. I've got my pan heating up on the stove, so while that's heating, I'm going to cut my onion. All right, so I've got my pan heating on about medium. Now I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of olive oil. If you want to just use cooking spray, you definitely could do that. I'm adding some olive oil just to add a little bit of fat to it, since I'm using the turkey breast. And to that, we're going to add the onion. And just let the onion kind of cook up just a little bit. I'm going to turn my heat down just a little. And then I'm going to add in the pound of turkey breast. And just chop that up. So we're just going to let that cook until the onions are nice and soft and the turkey is cooked. All right, so now I'm going to add the taco seasoning packet, the Rotel tomatoes, including the juice. I'm going to add my 8 ounces of spaghetti. This will actually fit in the pan whole, but I think I'm just going to break it. I know some people are cringing. There are a lot of people who can't stand people who break their spaghetti. So let me know in the comments, are you a spaghetti breaker or do you leave it whole? And then finally, 3 cups of water. So now just try to mix it a little bit, enough just to get the noodles down in there. So now I've turned the heat up to high, and I'm just going to let that come to a boil over high heat. And then once it comes to a boil, I'm going to reduce it to low and then cover it and let it simmer for 15 minutes. All right, so that is going at a rapid boil. So now I'm going to kick my heat down to low. Now I'm going to cover it and let it simmer for 15 minutes. And of course, I don't have a cover to fit this. I can't find my cover, so this is the one I'm going to use. This smells so good. So you definitely could bulk it up if you want with some zucchini or something. Maybe some zucchini and squash would really bulk this up. So just stir that up real good. So the recipe calls for 4 ounces of the cheese. I'm going to do half of it now, and then we'll put half of it on when it's done. So I'm just going to weigh out 2 ounces. And that's going to get mixed right in. So now I've weighed out the other 2 ounces. Now what I'm going to do, just because it's going to be easier to portion it out, I'm going to put it into this 13 by 9 inch glass baking dish. That actually made quite a bit. Now I'm just going to sprinkle the rest of the cheese over top of it. And if you're using cilantro, you can put the cilantro on now. I'm just going to wait and put the cilantro on mine since my husband doesn't like it. All right, so I'm just going to let that sit and cool for just a minute before we portion it out. So while that's sitting there, I am going to get my cucumbers together. I'm going to have some cucumbers on the side with this. I thought about doing a little side salad, but just decided to do some cucumbers. So I'm going to put some cucumbers in each container, and I'm also going to use, my husband's going to have this light Italian Olive Garden dressing, and I'm going to have this Skinny Girl poppy seed dressing. For this kind, you can have actually 3 1/4 tablespoons for 0 points. If you're counting calories, it's 10 calories for 2 tablespoons. For the Olive Garden light Italian dressing, you can have 2 1/2 tablespoons for 1 point. If you're counting calories, it's 30 calories for 2 tablespoons. So normally I would weigh these out, but I know I'm not going to eat more than 3 tablespoons worth, so I'm just going to kind of dump a little bit in there. And the same with my husband's. So what I'm going to do for these is I am going to actually use some plastic bags just to put in the side, and that way I can just pull these out because I'll be reheating the spaghetti. So for the breakfast bake, to reheat those, I usually just reheat those for maybe like 30 seconds at a time. I don't like mine overly hot, so usually about 45 seconds is all those take. And then for the spaghetti, I'll put that in for probably a minute, reheat it for a minute, and just kind of stir it around and see if it's heated through. So I'm just going to get these cucumbers cut and peeled. I'm not going to be washing these because I'm going to be cutting the skins off them anyways. All right, so I'm all done cutting those up. So now I'm just gonna close the bags up. So if you want them fresh, you could actually just put these, save yourself on the plastic and just put the cucumbers in the side, and then you can add your dressing the day that you have it. So that's another option. So now I'm gonna do the same thing with this. I'm gonna cut it into 6 and get them in the meal prep containers. So the lunch is done, and oh my gosh, y'all, I just tried it and it is so good. You could really add so much to this. So this is another one that's really versatile, so easy to make. And I almost forgot my cilantro. So those three are my husband's. I can tell because I can see my poppy seeds in mine. So for mine, I'm just gonna cut up a little bit of cilantro for each one. Just put a little bit on each one. So lunch is done, and again, that's a great portion. So again, these are 2 points on purple. Yes, my purple people, y'all are gonna love me again this week. 2 points on purple, 6 points on blue, and 7 points on green. If you're counting calories, 282 calories. And for if you're following WW, anything in the bag here is 0. So if you use any other different dressing, make sure to account for the points. And if you're counting calories, of course, you'll have to weigh out your cucumber and depending what you use for your salad dressing. All right, we are moving on to dinner kits now. So I'm gonna do things a little bit different. If you're new to my channel and you've not seen me do dinner kits before, normally what I do is take these reusable bags and I just put all the ingredients into the bag and I mark it for what I'm gonna have for the week. There is actually a meal prep playlist down in the description box below, or I think like if you go to the main page on my channel, say playlists, and you'll see a meal prep playlist. If you go into there, you'll see how I normally do my dinner kits. And basically I do them kind of like a meal delivery kit. So I'm just portioning everything and putting it in there. This week I'm doing things a little bit different because this week is gonna be a week of slow cooker recipes. So I'm actually making them into freezer meals. So I'm gonna do freezer meal, slow cooker recipes. So for these ones, I decided just to use regular plastic bags. If you watch me, you know that I try to save on plastic and I usually use reusable bags. But when I'm doing freezer meals, I just use these. So for these, I actually just write all the instructions on there and I put all the ingredients in there and then they go in my freezer. So I'm gonna just take you along while I put everything in these bags. So normally on Monday nights we do salmon. I know I've shocked everybody this week and I'm not having salmon. So Monday night I'm gonna be doing chicken black bean tacos. Now you might be saying, Kristi, why are you doing tacos when you're having taco pasta for lunch? It's different. It's not really, this is really a different kind of taco. This isn't like your typical taco. So that's the one I'm doing one night. One night I am going to be doing honey Dijon pork chops with potatoes and vegetables. And one night I'm going to be doing hamburger vegetable soup. So those are the three that I'm putting together for this week. So for this Skinny Taste recipe, this is slow cooker chicken black bean tacos. This one is not really a dump and go. There are a couple steps to it. So there's, you know, putting the slaw together, things like that. So I'll do that the night that we have it. So all I'm going to be doing is putting the chicken and the beans and tomatoes in the bag with all the seasonings. So one thing that she says, if you're making it, like if I were making this right now, I would season the chicken and then add the beans and tomatoes to the crock pot and then put the chicken on top of that. Because I'm not doing this right now, I'm making it more like into a freezer meal. I'm just going to throw all the spices and the chicken and the tomatoes and black beans right in the bag, rather than seasoning them on the chicken. I don't think it's really gonna make that much of a difference. One thing I did on here is I put that it serves 2, but I am just making the 4. What I'm gonna do is, her recipe calls for a serving of 4, so I'm gonna do it and then I'm gonna freeze half of it. I'll just, when it's done, I'll put half of it in my freezer and save it for another night. So 12 ounces of chicken. If you're on blue or purple, you don't really need to weigh it out. If you are on green or counting calories, make sure to weigh it out. So I have my chicken already pre-packaged. When I buy my chicken, I split it up and package it this way. This is actually still frozen, which is perfectly fine because I'm going to be putting this right back in the freezer anyway. So I'm just going to pour all my ingredients into the bag. So I've got my Rotel tomatoes. And then the black beans need to be rinsed and drained. So let me do that real quick. Okay, so I've rinsed and drained my black beans. So we're gonna add those. Let me tell you, I used to hate black beans. Black beans, avocado, all that stuff. Oh, I could not handle it. And now I love it. So now I'm gonna add all the seasonings. So for the seasonings, I'm gonna need 1 1/8 teaspoon of chili powder. I think the extra 1/8 is just because that's what she was putting on the chicken. So I'll just put a little bit over a teaspoon. And then for the cumin, 3/4 of a teaspoon plus 1/8. Again, that 1/8 was to put on the chicken. So we'll just kind of eyeball that. And then 1/4 teaspoon each of garlic powder and oregano. All right, and then I'm just gonna kind of mix that together real quick. And then I'll add my chicken. And then just try to get the air out of it the best you can. And then usually what I do is just lay these flat in my freezer. So now what I'll do is the day that I go to have it, I'll thaw it overnight in fridge. So really, I don't even need to put this one in the freezer because I'm gonna be having this tomorrow. Thaw overnight in fridge, cook on high 2 hours, and then put the slaw together. So the rest of the instructions are on there. So the points for this, she says, includes everything like the taco shells, the pico de gallo, the avocado, and then the slaw. So if you put any other toppings on like sour cream or anything like that, or cheese, just make sure to account for those. So that's it for that one. Next one we're gonna put together is honey Dijon pork chops with potatoes and vegetables. And again, same thing, I just put the instructions on here. For this one, I'm gonna be putting everything in the bag except for the chicken broth. So I'm gonna thaw it overnight in the fridge, and then I'm gonna place it in the slow cooker with 1/4 of a cup, between 1/4 of a cup and 1/2 cup of broth, and then cook on low 6 to 8 hours. For this one, it's 9 points on blue and green, 5 points on purple, and 454 calories. And again, the calories are kind of estimates when it comes to the vegetables. The original recipe makes 4 and it calls for 2 cups of carrots. I'm gonna actually just be doing for 2 portions, but I'm still gonna use the 2 cups of carrots. So that 2 cups is for the calories, is for the 2 cups of carrots. So again, this is another real easy one. For this one, we're just gonna dump everything in there. So I have my carrots. You can use just regular baby carrots if you want. When I'm cooking carrots like this, I prefer whole carrots. So I did peel these. You don't necessarily have to peel carrots as long as you wash them real good with a vegetable brush. But these ones I did go ahead and peel. And I just like the flavor of real carrots better in recipes. I love the baby carrots for snacking though. So just dump those in there. The other thing I have is 12 ounces of potatoes. So each potato for us is about 6 ounces each. So let me get this other potato cut up. And I just cut it into chunks. And toss those in there. And then I'm gonna put in my pork chops. So these are 2 6-ounce portions. This is actually part of a great big loin that I buy at Sam's Club. I just buy the great big, I don't know if it's a half or whole pork loin, and I cut it into my own pork chops. And then I usually keep part of it for a roast. So that's what these are. So I'm gonna just toss those in there. And the next thing I'm gonna add is some pepper. About 1/4 of a teaspoon of pepper, and about 1/4 of a teaspoon of onion powder, and maybe a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. We love garlic powder, so I'm going to put about a teaspoon in there. And the last thing I'm going to add is some honey Dijon skinny girl dressing. If you don't like things like this, you could definitely use just honey and Dijon mustard. This does help lower the point, so that's why I'm using this. So I'm going to put in 2/3 of a cup. And then I'm not going to let the air out yet. I'm going to just seal it and then just mix everything up. All right. So now I've opened it up, and I'm just gonna kind of push everything, kind of flatten it out, and that way I can get as much air out as possible. This is another reason why I like to use these type of bags for freezer meals rather than the reusables, is it's a lot easier to get the air out as well. And then just seal it to the end. And that will lay flat in the freezer. And then, like I said, the only thing we have to add to it is the chicken broth. And also, before I move on to the last one, the website that I got this recipe from is stockpilingmoms.com. So what I will do is I'll link their original recipe down in the description box, and then I will let you know the modifications that I made to it. All right, the final one I'm going to do is hamburger vegetable soup. I've never had this recipe. I'm really excited to try it. I live in Florida, and as you can see, I have long sleeve. It has been so cold here. I try not to complain because I know up north y'all are freezing, but it has been chilly here. We're not used to this weather, so soup sounded really good this week. So this is a hamburger vegetable soup. Again, another super easy one. Thaw overnight in fridge, add to slow cooker with water. Cook on low 4 to 6 hours, and then break apart the ground beef and stir. This one I'm going to be serving with garlic bread because it is pretty low in points. This is 4 points on all programs, or 258 calories. So for a dinner, that is very low to me. This is going to make 4 servings, so honestly, I might have a double portion, or I will just have some nice fresh garlic bread with some real butter on it. Just something to increase my points that night. One other thing that I didn't mention is you should always write your date on the bag. Write the date that you have it so that you're not keeping it in your freezer for more than like 3 months. I always make sure to use mine up within 3 months. Because I'm actually going to be cooking these this week, I didn't write the date on it. So if you are making these ahead of time and you're keeping them in your freezer for a later date, just make sure to put the date on there. So for this one, the things we're going to need are, the original recipe calls for half of a 16-ounce bag of frozen corn and a 16-ounce bag of frozen peas and carrots. So the total of that, 16 and 8, is 24. So I'm using 12 ounces of peas and carrots and 12 ounces of corn. So just put those in the bottom of the bag. Next, I'm going to add in some diced tomatoes. It calls for the petite diced, but I didn't have any petite diced. I just had these regular, I guess the regular diced that I got from Sam's Club. So that goes in, and you don't drain those, just pour them right in the way they are. And you need a 15-ounce can of that. The other thing we're going to need is a pound of Hamburg. I'm using the 96% extra lean ground beef. Now, normally when I've made freezer meals before, anything that called for ground beef, I always cook it first and then put it in there. But this one says to just put it in there like this. So it says that we're going to break it apart after, but I feel like we need to kind of break it apart a little bit now. So I'm just going to break it into big chunks. So the recipe calls for a packet of Slow Cooker's vegetable beef soup seasoning mix. I could not find any of that, so I compromised, and I'm going to be using the Slow Cooker savory pot roast flavor. So I don't think it's going to change the flavor of it too much, but if you can find the vegetable beef soup seasoning mix, that would be better. So we're going to dump a whole packet of that in there. All right, and then we don't need any other spices because we've got the spices in that. And then the other thing that it calls for is 3 cups of water, but we're not going to add that until the day that we make it. So now this one we really don't need to stir around too much. I just want to get some of that seasoning down in there. So just kind of flip it around a couple times. All right, and then we're going to do the same thing with that one. Just try to flatten it out. Open it so that you can release the air. Try and push as much air up as possible. And I know I've had some of y'all give me suggestions on how to do this. And I know some of y'all stick a straw right in the end and suck out the air. I'm not going to be doing that. So the thing is, I'm actually going to be making this week, so it's okay if there's still a little bit of air in there. But if I were, keeping these in my freezer for the 3 months, then I would probably spend a little more time trying to get the air out. So that is going to be our hamburger vegetable soup. I think that's going to be super good. So here's the thing with freezer meals. These are so easy to do a bunch at a time. So if you have a day, you know, half a day, and you want to put a bunch of these together, you very easily could line up a bunch of bags and do several of these, like maybe do 4 different ones of these, do 4 different of the others, you know, just line up your bags and pour the stuff in there as you go. Just super easy to do, and then you can just keep them in your freezer and you have them in there. So no regular meal kits this week, just some freezer meals. So now I've got my fruit that's already washed for the week, so that's ready to go. I have some kiwi in my fridge that I'll use for the week, and of course my pudding for snacks. So that's pretty much it for snacks this week. So now what I do is just go through my meal plan and just see if there's anything else that I can put together to make easier throughout the week. And the one thing that I can do is my cereal. So Friday I'm planning on having cereal for breakfast, and I will be working, so I'll have it at work. So I'm just gonna get it ready so that way I can just take it to work with me and it's ready to go. So I'm gonna have this Fiber One cereal. You can have this for 2 points for 2/3 of a cup, which is 40 grams or 90 calories. So I'm gonna put it on grams and just weigh out the 40 grams. Then I'm going to take this container, which these containers I kept from back when I did the meal delivery kits. So I can't give you a link to those ones. And then I'm going to use some unsweetened almond milk. I'm going to use half a cup. 1 cup is 240 milliliters, so half a cup would be 120. Of course, you don't have to weigh this. You can just measure it out. And it should fill it pretty much to the top. Close enough. So then I will just take those to work with me, and I will also cut up a banana in there too. So, or maybe throw some blueberries in there. So that's portioned out and ready to go, and that will be my 2-point breakfast. And if you're calorie counting, the almond milk would just be 15 calories for the half a cup. So the last thing that I did is put a tray together. This tray actually is gonna just be in my fridge, and this has all the ingredients that I'm gonna need the night that we do the chicken black bean tacos. So because there was so much more, most of the freezer meals, everything's in there except for the water or the broth, but with this one, it did have some extra things, so I just put it into a tray, and that way it's right there and I can just grab the tray. I don't have to go searching through my fridge for everything. So I have the pico de gallo, the cilantro, the coleslaw. So make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Thank you all so much for watching. If you're new, I hope you'll subscribe. I'll talk to you in my next video. I'm Kristi, and I'm Planning Us Healthy. I'm using these Mueller's whole weight noodles. So these ones are 0 on purple. If you're using did I say whole weight? 6-ounce portions of not chicken. You've got to be kidding me. I'm not putting this one in. They're gonna think we're